And I'll have Matt take over.
I will try. Thank you, Chair. My name is Matt Mearsman. Before I do the roll call, I just want to kind of give a brief introduction to the River Basin Commission. We got some new members that have joined us. We got some folks out in the audience, which is great to see. So first of all, I mentioned my name, Matt Mearsman. I technically am an employee of the Michigan Area Council of Governments, a regional planning agency, and the Michigan Area Council of Governments provides staffing for the River Basin Commission, has since the thing was created. And joining me today from MACOG is Ashley and Kate, and you'll hear from Kate later. So let me just kind of give you a little background on this thing. First of all, when we talk about the St. Joe River Basin, we're talking about an area of land. It's all this land that drains the St. Joe River, includes a bunch of counties that don't even touch the St. Joe River, but all the ditches and creeks and storm drains, that's where it's going. We were created back in 1988, first to address water quality issues, but more recently, our scope was expanded to also look at flooding and flood mitigation. Our enabling statute empowers us to work cooperatively with Michigan, but our funding and our governance lies entirely on the Indiana side of the line. Our primary purpose is to provide a forum for the discussion, study, and evaluation of water resource issues that affect all of our members. There's a number of things provided in that statute. They're listed here. There's a lot of text. We can always refer back to this, but I find it helpful to at least include it if we need it. Who is the St. Joe River Basin Commission? All of you sitting around the table, hopefully here. But it's individuals from each of our 6 member counties, and specific individuals, the ones you'll see up there, mayor, county commissioner, health officer, county surveyor, soil and water conservation district. Rather than do a formal roll call, what I'd like to do is go around the table and let's see if I got some help up here. Yeah, go around the table, state your name, your title and affiliation. And if you are here as a proxy representative, tell us who you're representing. So all those statutory members that I mentioned have the ability to designate a proxy. So some folks here maybe work in a department that deals with water or serve as a representative. And so I'm going to start here with Bill. And Bill, if you get us started, we'll just kind of go around the table and make sure we got a quorum present.
I'm Bill Hartstead, the Alpharetta County Health Department. I'm the proxy for the health officer, Dr. Richard Hostel.
Chad Johnson. I am the park superintendent, town of Syracuse, here on behalf of Cindy Kaiser, town council president.
John Moe for St. Joe County Surveyor's Office Drainage Board. I'm here to represent the new county surveyor of St. Joe County, Bobby Lutsky for Bobby.
Adam Dunn, City Mission Walker, representing Mary Gatewood. I'm also the vice chair. Dr. Deegan, City Golf Card, representing Mayor Bob Ross. Brady Hoover, Council Drainage Council.
Mark Bensick, Director of Environmental Health, St. Joe County Health Department, proxy for Bill.
Luke Barker, Kirk Gilcard, County Surveyor.
Steve Vaughn, Grange County Surveyor's Office, representing Zach Wilson, Urban County.
Katie Laughlin, Benton County Commissioner. Reed Sexton, Counselor.
Jim Cleveland, Stephen County Surveyor.
I'm Ron Edgell, I'm with Indiana Department of Natural Resources. I'm the proxy for Director England.
And I apologize, Rod, for not including the DNR when I ran through the list of people that are story members. Sorry, man.
Jewel Wise, supervisor with Kosciuszko County Soil and Water Conservation District.
John Rogers, Kosciuszko County, representing County Commissioner.
Carrie Brody.
Yes.
Jim does help Rick County, Soil Water Conservation.
Good morning, Janelle Meyer, Steuben County Soil and Water Conservation District. Alicia Walsh, Administrator, Superintendent Health Department, proxy for Dr. Ted Christman. Chris Thomas, City of Anvil, and the Board Coordinator representing Mayor Dick Hickman.
Karen Price, sits up at the court from Tennessee, James Gibbons, is up there.
Bob Barnes, Elkhart County Commissioner.
Right, and we just have one other member coming in, and I don't know if I've got her name tag up there or not, but Anita Hess. Hey there. Anita Hess is Noble County Commissioner here with us. Anita, I think there is one more seat, if you'd like, right here next to Mark and Phil. We just We just went through our roll call and introduction. Sorry to put you on the spot. Thank you for being here. We have an incredible turnout, more than a quorum, Chair. Multiple representatives from each county. Thank you.
So we're going to move forward with the consent agenda. Just as a reminder, we're only going to be looking once unless somebody requests an item to be pulled out to be voted on separately. And if you want to do this for a couple minutes.
Yes. So I sent these around. I'm going to thank Ashley for her work on the minutes. I don't think there's anything I need to highlight. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the minutes that were sent around? Did they find any errors or anything? Okay. That's all I've got on the minutes, Chair.
Okay, moving on to the financial report.
All right, this one I will give you a little more on. So there's 3 statements included here. The first is the statement of financial activities. Just a few things I want to know. One, I put the little notes next to them if you're looking in your packet, but few things. One is that we were able to get a little bit more money from the state. I made an appeal to have our reserve amount. They always hold a certain amount of our money back, and I got that lowered from 2% to 1%, so we're a little ahead on our income from the state of Indiana. We are way ahead on interest income. The interest rates have been really great on our account, so I'm projecting. That's the other thing just to mention. I included some year-end forecasts in here that I think are going to help us later in the meeting, and you'll see that I forecasted our interest to be quite a bit, like 1,000% higher than what we were thinking. The other things, we are expecting a slight shortfall down under water monitoring. I'll talk about that later. And then, there's several items down under special projects where the expenses are expected to be a little bit lower than budgeted. But that's all the sort of the primary notes that I had on this one. If anybody's got any questions about the statement of activities. Not, I'll move into the next one, which is basically our balance sheet. It's our asset statement. This should, most cases, match up with our bank statement, which is also included in your packet. In this quarter, it does. The only time it would if we had checks that were outstanding or something like that. We did get all of our receivables from the state of Indiana that we were waiting on at the last quarter, so we're doing well there. And our liabilities, our accounts payable are all to MACOG for our services this last quarter. Overall, the main number to look at here, for those of you not familiar, the total fund balance is basically the amount of money in our account that we've got to use from. So we're doing well at just under 350,000. And I should mention both of these statements and the one to follow, they are for our second quarter of our fiscal year, which ended 12/31. So these are not the forecast numbers. I was able to include stuff from the last couple months, but these statements all end 12/31. Anybody have any question about the statement of assets? All right. I will move into the last one, which is our cash flow statement. Now, the other two are prepared on an accrual basis. This one is on a cash flow, so you'll notice that sometimes the numbers don't match up. In this case, we have some invoices under disbursements that were for MACOG's work last fiscal year, the very last set of them. So, that wouldn't be included in those first 2 statements. But otherwise, this pretty well matches with the other 2 statements. And the one thing that I want to note, which is really great, is all the communities, our members listed under local government appropriations. Since our last meeting, we've received our appropriation from everyone. We are waiting on, I think, City of South Bend and City of Kendallville are still outstanding, but I do expect that. I think they both budgeted the money. It's just a matter of the payments haven't come in. But that's, I guess, all I've got on the cash flow statement, unless anybody has any questions or anything. All right, thank you.
Are we moving on to claims, or do you want to do the bank statements?
Yeah, there's nothing particular to note in the bank statements, and especially this is a nice, easy quarter where it matches up with the cash statement, so we should be good.
Perfect. So no, you want to go over Google claims?
Yes, we can do claims now. Sorry. Oh, wait, I got it up there already. Okay. Just a note about claims. The invoices for all these things are included in your packet. The only one that's not there, paper copy yet, is the claims voucher from our attorney. Our attorney, Brandy Ecker, is here, and she will be sending me immediately following the meeting that last one that's listed for today's date. But otherwise, we got invoices in here, MACOG services. We had some financial support to Indiana Watershed Leadership Academy attendees. We've got several stream gauging things that come up this quarter. One with the USGS, the gauge on Waldron Lake, and then also some work that we're doing in St. Joe County that I'll touch on later. That covers our claims. If anybody has any questions about any of the claims or the invoices?
No questions, I'll entertain a motion for approval of consent agenda.
So,
And if we could, that's one thing I meant to mention, Chair, I'm sorry. It's not by any means a rule in our statute or our bylaws, but we have sort of a convention of stating your county when you make the motion, and ideally a second coming from another county. Our friend Martin's not here today, but it's something he kind of started, and I think the intention is really good, that we don't want one county sort of driving business. So as much as we can, we want to spread that love out. So Randy, if you could restate.
no.
Thank you.
You have a second?
Also, should pass.
Ready to move on to old business?
You got to do all in favor, I think.
Oh, wait. Will you? Okay.
Anybody opposed?
Is there anybody opposed?
Because, and sorry, I'm meaning to be, I'm not a Robert's Rules person, but one thing that's nice is because we don't have anybody attending virtually today, we're able to conduct with a consensus vote. So just calling for the ayes. And if there were a nay, we would have to go to a roll call vote. Yeah, exactly.
Move on to old business at this time.
Thank you. The first one I've got on here is our Steuben County Needs Assessment, and it's great to see we got a lot of turnout from Steuben County today. We did some work with Christopher Burke Engineering to sort of analyze basically the local policies that were in place around what, so floodplain ordinance, stormwater ordinance. We worked with the surveyor's office on what was currently coming in the way of drain assessment fees, all that kind of stuff, and provided some recommendations. We had a meeting with the commissioners, the Drainage Board, back on December 5th, and shared I got the primary findings of the needs assessment, which were, one, we need to get the maintenance funds back to a place on these drains where they can afford to do the work. So I know that they're going through the public hearings that are necessary to raise the rates on some of those, and in the process, looking at the watersheds that they're collecting from. So that was one of the things that came out of it. Another was updating the stormwater ordinance, and maybe more importantly, collecting permit fees so that we can help fund the implementation of the stormwater ordinance, which was something that was missing. But part of that update, there was specifically some language about referring to LTAP. It's an acronym, Local Technical Advisory. I don't know what the P part is. Purdue University is where it comes from, but I know that's not the P. But what is it?
Local technical.
Thank you, Adam. Local Technical Assistance Program. They work with municipalities and counties on all kinds of stuff, and they have a model stormwater ordinance that they just updated. And so the recommendation was to include that model ordinance as much as possible in what Steuben County adopts going forward. And the last thing, this is familiar to me from what we did with the Wetlands Task Force, but staffing was definitely an issue. And so, trying to get the capacity built up both in the planning department and at the surveyor's office to be able to appropriately implement some of this stuff was one of the recommendations or findings. Does anybody have any questions, or anybody from Steuben County care to elaborate or add anything? We tried to.
No, I think plain water program, everything.
So Andy is a new commissioner and took the place on this board, at least of Lenny Lichty. And this was, Lenny really pushed us on doing this, that, as a way for the St. Joe River Basin Commission to sort of bring some value into the county and look at a problem that they really felt was there. That is like that not all these different ordinances were kind of connected up, and the understanding of who regulates what and all that stuff was a little bit gray. I know that we tried to shed some light on it, but it is definitely complicated, and it comes down to funding in a lot of cases, and that's tough.
Yeah, we have our planner here for an hour, and he's been working on stuff on the planning side, and then everybody kind of working together. Yeah, your surveyors here, John?
So I knew, yeah, and I knew that the surveyor's office was working on the first recommendation, that is updating the watersheds and getting assessments updated. So you guys are working on an update to the plan too? Cool. All right, well, let us know, and it certainly wouldn't be me or anybody else here from Maycock probably, but we could recruit Burke if we need some more assistance with that update.
Right now.
Yeah, right. I know. Randy told me the same. Noble County, Steve's boss, Zach, calls me up every time we get like this. He's like, it's all coming to you in South Bend. That's where it's all going. Yeah. Good deal. All right. Anybody else on Spokane County needs assessment?
Is there a fee structure you're working on or looking at? Is there?
Yeah.
We talked about, I had a few commission meeting last night, where the very one of the states, Jim attended, of course, because I statute on the board. It was brought up, but we're not there yet.
Okay, I was just curious how.
Yeah, I don't lie, we got a recommendation. They might be interested.
What I would say to Jim's question, because I think when this was included in that there's a big matrix. I don't know if it was included in your attachments or not, but they were trying to look for local examples where this maybe had been done. And I think Noble County was mentioned as at least a county that does collect a fee related to their stormwater ordinance. And I've had conversations with Randy. I'm pointing to Randy because the surveyor's office implements this. And he said, yeah, we got a fee, but it's not enough to really cover, it helps, but it sounds like it's maybe not sufficient to fully cover the cost.
At one time, it did pretty well, and the previous administration covered costs and hired that.
Yep.
But things turned out, and since then, it's kind of been up and down. It's not, I handle it myself. I walk through the so, it assists, in fact, it's fun, but it's not adequate to be able to fund the staff.
And one of the advantages, and you might not think of it like this, but is Randy is a licensed land surveyor, so it does give him some skill set to do some of this in-house that some of our other counties, you're just simply not going to have it. You're going to need to hire out. So whether it's floodplain ordinance or stormwater stuff. And so we'd want to make sure that the fee structure covers whatever kind of county surveyor ends up being in office. You don't want to, and honestly, it should be the same. The price is still the price. It's just they got someone like you that's like, oh, I guess I'll still keep doing this even though I'm not. Right. Okay, but they do have a structure in place.
Well, I think that's we've had that fee for the
Yeah.
last since 2000.
The stormwater fee. Yes.
Like and we use a lot of and different bigger affiliates, but studies on, and we're at that point where is, if the funds are there, but they're not there. And so we'll try to base our implementational programs, but there's so many mandated or requiring things that needs to be done. I would fit that in. So we're at that crossroads too. Bill can elaborate on that if he wants to. So right now we're $15 per ERU a year.
ERU is equivalent residential unit, right? And it's related to impervious surface.
It's impervious.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's based on.
The more impervious you got on your parcel, the more you're going to pay in your stormwater fee.
And you try to make it as fair and representative as from the county standpoint, the MS4 side of it. But it's, you don't want to gouge, but drainage is huge when you look at the infrastructure. As far as roads, we don't have a problem with roads, but the water will go wherever it wants to go. So that's one of the things that our office and Evans Board and whatnot kind of coordinate that. We've kind of lost sight of the infrastructure of water. Fine.
Any other comments? If not, Matt Phillips, Ditch study?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so the next item under old business, this is something that we approved the help of a couple meetings ago, but I'm glad John Law is here from St. Joe County Drainage Board Surveyor's Office. We can speak a little bit. What I'll share is that we have hired Tritium, which is an engineering firm. Actually, I think he's located in Elkhart County, but works all over the watershed doing stream measurements, all kinds of stuff. But basically, Phillips Ditch, tributary to the St. Joe through Bowman Creek in the South Bend area, goes through a residential area called Jewel Woods. And I think they're in the news all the time because they flood out there. There's been FEMA buyouts that have taken place there. But the county hired an engineering firm to try to look at some kind of a mitigation plan, whether you build detention ponds or some kind of way to increase storage capacity and slow down some of that flow. But the engineer basically said, this is the best we can do because we're missing data. We don't have data on what Phillips Ditch really moves when we get good rain events and stuff. So we got him out there he's taking his first round of measurements, and these are, for one, discharge measurements, which he's gonna go out 5 different times at different water levels, and it'll help us be able to use the height of the creek or the height of the drain to determine how much volume is coming through. You have to generate a curve number because the channel shape is different. When the river goes up, the velocities change, all this kind of stuff. So the USGS does this at all of their gauging stations. When you get a big rain event, you'll see the USGS crew out on the bridge doing these kinds of things. So we've got someone locally doing that because we're installing 4 solar-powered, cell phone-powered water level monitors that will provide us real-time information so we capture all the big events. We know how high the creek gets. And ideally, we would study this for probably 2 or 3 years and hopefully capture enough events during that time that we'll have data for the engineer to be able to design something that more matches what they really see out there. So I don't know, John, does that capture kind of what we're trying to do with it?
Yeah, that's, Phillips Ditch is really complicated and starts off as a tile, open ditch, big swamp, open ditch, it drains that swamp into 2 tile that were put in the probably 1800s, late 1800s, open ditch again, and goes down, or states rerouted the entire thing, then it goes through Jewel Woods, then underneath the state over again, and then through a bunch of businesses, and then back into a big swamp, and then back underground,
So yes, you hit on something with this. What he didn't explicitly say, but is implied in all that, is one of the wild things. And this may not, for people who don't work in water all the time, you wouldn't think this. You'd think a stream, as it makes its way to the river, gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Well, not all streams. Some streams lose water to the groundwater. And this is one of those ones where it goes under US 20, it's flowing right now, maybe, 10, 15 cubic feet per second. But by the time it gets to Chippewa Avenue, which is just 2 roads downstream, there's no flow there. It completely disappears in this wetland area. Now at high flows, there is a swale that John and I followed and stuff. So one of the other measurements that this firm is doing is what's called stream bed conductivity, to try to understand where and how much volume can be lost to groundwater. And so they've been out there kind of doing those measurements too, to try, again, help understand. Just because it's flowing at this level at this road crossing doesn't mean that it's going to be that plus more at the next one. It might actually be less, and that's what we're finding with the first round of measurements. So,
and also Phillips Ditch goes through AM General property. When they got the big Hummer contract, they rerouted the ditch through their new plants and kind of kept it a secret what they did with the ditch and all their designs for the buildings, just in case I guess we get attacked. So nobody really knows what it does underneath the AM General plant right there. Proving grounds and all that, way test the Hummers. So there's that in the two.
So Tritium will be getting the actual water level monitors out there yet this month, and they'll be going back out 4 more times for those discharge measurements throughout the next probably year, capture different flows.
Any questions, comments? Moving on to member partner support.
Okay, so this is kind of a picking up where we left off a couple meetings ago, but we do have a line item in our budget I should start with under special projects for member and partner support. We've utilized this to help Kendallville last year with their some stormwater education program. I think we may have even used some of these funds for the work we did in Steuben County. But you know, different projects that are going on with partners and members. And in this case, we had a request from Indiana Lake Association. And last time I brought it up, it was just an individual from the association who was interested in trying to identify E. coli sources in their lake. I got a map of Indiana Lake. It sits right on the border of Indiana and Michigan in Elkhart County. The Michigan side has a sewer system on it, and the Indiana side is still all on septic. And there's some suspicion that there could be failing septics that are contributing to the eutrophication. Basically, there's extra nutrients going into the lake, and it seems to be getting cloudier, or at least that's the concern of the residents. And what we basically came to, there was a couple things that came up. One, it was apparent that we don't have a formal process in place for issuing grants or applying for grants or anything like that. We've kind of been taking things on a case-by-case basis. And this sort of brought that to attention. How do we handle this? And so far it's kind of been being handled in-house by me, and I'm trying to do my best with it. But the other thing that came up very clearly was if we would support a project like this, there would have to be a formal request from an organization like a lake association. It couldn't just come from an individual who was looking for help. And so I took that information back to them, and they put together a formal letter, which I included in your packet, along with the proposal that they got from an individual or a business that works with lake associations in our area to do studies, lake management plans. They're working on the watershed plan for the Elkhart River, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, they had a proposal in there with a couple different options for monitoring. I be happy to weigh in as far as my opinion on this, and I will, and you guys do whatever you feel. But what I want to say is so basically there's two options for the kind of monitoring that they would do. One of them is $3,845. The other one is $2,000 or so. If you're going to do it out there, you need to do the option A, which is the $3,845, because that's how you're going to get to the source. It's where won't get into the details of it, but you're actually getting at the source, and you can read about it in that proposal, or I can tell you about it if you want me to. But the cost of that does not include the cost of the sample analysis themselves for E. coli and nitrate and all these kind of things. What I would recommend, we have enough money in our member and partner support to cover this and still have at least the same amount left over for this fiscal year. So I would propose trying to help these folks. I mean, last meeting we talked about how special this lake was. It's kind of unique and running the state line, but it's also unique because it's got cold water fish in it. We could dip our toes in this whole idea of helping local lake groups with monitoring and kind of see how it goes. So that's sort of my thoughts of why. But I want to sort of couch that in. I would recommend if we support it, that we require them to do two things. One, obviously make the data, it's shared, it's publicly available data. But two, that they cover the cost of all those samples that are going to have to be ran. And that gets them some skin in the game. This is not just us helping. So that would be my recommendation on this.
So Matt and I had a few conversations offline about this, because I was the one in the last meeting or the meeting prior, 43, about a more formalized process about requests coming in to spend St. Joe River Basin Commission money on lake associations or other organization nonprofits that would request assistance with whatever they are trying to do. And offline, we kind of came to the idea that there were a couple of things that we would look at for those, and those are just general ideas. That it would come from an actual association or it would come from an actual body, not a private individual pointing out a problem, that they would somehow contribute to the overall assessment, survey, or solution themselves as well. So they put some skin in the game, not sure on a percentage, that they would have to come back to the St. Joe River Basin and actually present what happened and what the outcome of that was, or give an update, at least if it's a long-term project. And what was the final thing? There's three.
Yeah.
There's one more. But keeping in mind that we're going to keep this at least so they have to report back to us, even if we are giving them some money, not all of it. So we have an idea of how that money is being spent and transparency along with that.
Yeah, and I guess something else, I mentioned the money being in the budget. That's one thing, but especially for our members, it's important to understand we approve a work plan every year. And so included in that work plan is, a description of what member and partner support is supposed to be used for, what it's meant for. And one of the lines in there is funding to local units of government and other partners for projects that serve to improve water quality or mitigate flooding in the river basin. that is the objective of this project. So, that's broad, but there's a spot in the work plan where this fits. So, yes.
Is there any discussion on, maybe lending, how much St. Joe will get them? Because this could open this huge can of worms for multiple things.
Mhm.
So I thought, amount set, where no matter what, each project only goes up to this amount.
I think that's exactly what Alicia was getting at. It's not exactly, but it's part of what she was getting at in that, we can continue to do this one by one and deal with each one as they come, or we can set up a process where we dedicate a certain amount of money for that, and you would have rules around it, like that up to this much with this much match, and that kind of thing. Sorry, our council had a comment.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think this being is by itself and it coming up sort of near the end of your fiscal year as it is, I don't think that if you decided that you wanted to do this particular project, that it would be a problem. I do think that if you decided to do this, that is basically you saying that this is something that we will be entertaining in the future is requests from private entities. And I do think that means that you need to set up some kind of a formal process. And it might not be a bad idea to appoint like a committee to come together and figure out what that policy should be.
Yeah.
And part of that, and including this project, you're going to want a formal, sub-recipient contract with these people that lay out exactly all of the things you have to send, any, reporting requirements that you want, all of that. Because SBOA would be interested in having fund fixed. So we need to make sure that all of it is happening properly. As far as all of the things you talked about for dollar amounts and those kind of things, that would be important to go into the policy. You would want to probably, if not today, then at the next meeting, figure out what kind of budget you're intending to use global for this. So that when people put in requests, they know like the available, like the first, some kind of deadline at the point of project requests that come in, how this has to be able to get considered in the fiscal year. All of that, I think, is what the dollar meeting. A full global policy that lays out all of that.
Okay.
That makes sense.
When this was brought up before us last year, that's on Elkhart County, right?
It's in Elkhart County, that's right. Yep.
Michigan, Elkhart County.
Yep.
It was said in the meeting that Elkhart County had done testing, found that there's E. coli in it, put forth a program to the association to have sewer systems put in so that they wouldn't have ground septic tanks. Was rejected by those people. Now, I want to know if we go out there and do testing, put money in there and say, then if you guys got E. coli in there, what have we accomplished other than what Elkhart County has already went out and told them? Is that going to force them to put sewer systems in so that they don't have septic tanks? Because if we're going to beat our head against the wall, against people that don't want septic systems because of the cost of what it's going to cost them, then why are we doing this? If they're not going to agree, and should be on there, that if we find E. coli in it because of septic systems in there, then they have to go back to the county and have sewer systems put in around that lake. Now, to me, it's a no-brainer that we go out there and spend all of our money doing tests that Elkhart has already done, already informed those people about, and said the way to mitigate this is to put a sewer system in, just like Michigan did. Because if we're just gonna go, oh yeah, you guys got stuff in your water, what good have we accomplished other than spending our money on worthless information? Because we already know what it is. Elkhart County's already done the testing. If that's what they said in that meeting last year, when this was brought before, because we decided then we weren't going to stick our fingers in this because there was nothing that we could do to force them to put sewer systems around the lake.
I would say if we have a contract with the association, we're not going to give forces of the sewer system.
Right.
We could put a provision in there that would say that the association itself would have to support the installation of the system and would have to, put forward so much of its resources for advocating for that. But I don't think that there's a mechanism that we could use.
No, and there's not. And there's not a mechanism that Elkhart County has went in there and forced them to even put that in there either. Even though they know that that's what they need. It's ridiculous for us to spend money on something that we already know what they need.
Ray, that's a really good point. I think at this point, we should probably table the request for the Indiana Local Lakes Association. And I think we should go with Brandy's advice and start the formal grant building, the SOP and the application process first, and then make them answer some questions about that. What are they willing to do if this grant was given to them? Yes, Anita?
If you give them a grant, they don't follow the suggestions from the report. Is there something that you can put in the report that just basically says you have to pay us back?
I mean, that would be more of a legal question for Brandy. I don't.
If the things that you're requiring to do are within their power and they refuse to do them, I think we could put that kind of mechanism in there. But if you're talking about something like forcing the installation of an entire sewer system, I don't think the association has that in its power to do. So I don't know that we could make it requiring that they pay us back for that institution.
Is there any Indiana Lakes Association member present here at the meeting?
It doesn't look like that, no.
I would make a motion to deny this request, then, just based on their not representing their proposal, and make a formal policy to take on these matters. I don't think we should table tonight their request.
I second that.
Okay, all those in favor of denying the Indiana Lakes Association application for funding? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those do not, nay.
All those opposed?
All those opposed. Okay.
Could we get the motion was made by and seconded by, because I missed that part. Okay. And then Bob Barnes, Elkhart County. Sorry, Ashley's help. All right.
Okay.
Can I say something? I'm really to set a policy before we start handing money out. And I'm not into cost sharing for municipal sewers. I think that there's an Elkhart County Sewer Regional Sewer District. Have they been contacted with any of this?
I think that's what, I was gonna say, I think that's what Ray was referring to.
I think it's what you
See,
This is the last, in that meeting, they said that they had been, that council had looked at that, but people denied that they're fighting because they don't want to pay that $71 a month, all of them buildings around there, or whatever it is, like it is in Grange County around all of our places.
I jumped back history on this last month. We had a request. We talked about the association coming forward as a formal request, and Bill, feel free to. They went to the regional sewer district.
Okay.
And they took a vote. It was 25 on the Indiana side that said yes. It was 50 that said no. So they opted not to move ahead in I think we all know that it's probably septic that is in that lake. And you have to be very careful because you have a group of people that voted this down, but then want their water clean. And so I agree with Bob, like we have to be, this was a formal and adamant. If the association really wanted, they should have been.
Were they notified, excuse me, were they notified that we were having this?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
And so, as somebody from Elkhart County, like Bob,
Yeah.
Bill's dealt with this forever. Michigan did put sewer in, and the Michigan side does have it. The Indiana side does not. And like I said, we had 25 vote yes and 50 no, so they opted not to. And so I think we have to be, just watch how we get involved in that, because
Agree.
I think it's taken.
What I would say, just to speak to Ray's point, and I think get at what you're saying, is my guess is if not all the members of the Lake Association, certainly the ones that are driving this request are among the 25 who voted for the sewer, and they are trying to look for data to support their side. Or in a best reading, they want to, okay, if we can't get sewer, let's find the 5 septics that aren't working and try to go fix those. That's again, the best reading, I think, of what this group is trying to do. That doesn't mean we should get in. I'm not saying we need to get into it. I gave my opinion and that's what it was.
And I think as we denied it, it can be, it's not that we did it forever.
Right.
Just get us some more information.
Right.
Get us.
Well, and us, for us, get a process in place.
Goals by the state. Right. So we can come and present something to us. You request a proposal, right?
That's what I was.
Yeah.
I think it truly highlights the fact that if a proposal comes from a certain county, it's the county's due diligence to kind of investigate the background story behind it. And we need to be aware of these in advance so you can do something like you investigate and look up the details of the history of the situation so we can be better informed, because I'm not going to go into Elkhart and research this, but if I can reach out to somebody who does have that information, then a better informed decision plan.
Could I get some clarity just from our council on, I think this one was unique in that it's the first one that's come from what we would classify as a partner kind of group. Typically, our support has been given directly to members, so counties, municipalities, that kind of thing. Are we still okay to continue doing that the way we have?
I don't see.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Randy, would it be germane to set up a committee now?
I think that if you are intending, if the board has the intent to do something like this in the future, to entertain such requests, I do think it would be a good idea to set a committee now to work on putting together a policy, a proposal budget for how much the commission wants to allocate to these kind of requests and come to information like that to bring to the full board if it's, June probably a little fast, but September.
Should I make that motion, or should I make a motion for somebody else to establish a committee?
A partner support policy committee?
I wouldn't say partner grant application. SAP.
You make the motion, Chair, or ask someone to make it.
Okay, I will make a motion that we establish a working committee to establish a grant application for SJRBC for partner support or municipal or local government support. Anything else? Randy, do I need to put anything else in there?
I would say probably not, but I think you're gonna have to first.
She was saying that you, as chair, you may actually be the one that needs to do the appointing to such a committee.
Can I make a motion legally?
I'll make a better motion for you, because I don't think you can do that as chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Put it in chair.
Okay. Ray, Hoover, what county?
Not great. But great, yeah.
I'll entertain this. I will entertain a second to that.
Jim has second. Okay, Kelly.
All those in favor? Any opposed? And are there any volunteers that would like to serve on this committee for this working group? How many do you think would be adequate?
I think you probably wanted at least one for each county. Beyond that, I'm up to you, what you feel, adequate representation of what the board might want. You want those to go in at least 50.
Yeah. How many counties we got?
6.
Okay. Volunteers.
I'll volunteer.
Okay.
Laura's going to come.
Okay. Speak now.
Can I ask, should somebody be on the, from the health department, so they can know how to read the bacteria levels in the samples? I mean,
That should be stripped down.
Yeah, Bob, right. And this would be a process that could entertain a request to put on workshops in schools about the river and the fish that live in. I mean, we could potentially entertain proposals, grant requests from all kinds of partner groups trying to do all kinds of different things. They wouldn't necessarily always be, no, definitely not. Or they wouldn't always even be water quality or chemistry related. It could be about flood awareness and low head dams or, all kinds of different things.
So the scope of this is very narrow. We're only doing the working group right now to kind of develop this grant application and SOP, how the review process would work. So we do need cross department support of this. So we have a commissioner. Is there anybody from the SMU Soil Water Conservation District that would like to serve on the committee? Janelle. Sure. Janelle Meyer from Steuben County. There we go. Surveyor, any?
So, yeah. I was going to say, you don't have to appoint him now, I don't think. Do you?
No. I think you can have to figure out how many people you want on it and what the criteria are, and you can have to do that.
Not putting you on the spot. Okay, so we'll table that for a little bit. We'll talk after.
But she was suggesting that we at least kind of suggest a number. So I don't know if that's 6.
I would say,
From,
I would say it needs to be an odd number for voting reasons. It should probably either be 5%.
although I don't know that the committee would be voting on anything, Anita.
It would be voted for, like this policy would be formalized.
Okay. Okay,
So
5.
Matt, does it have to be an individual from the board? Or could it be an outside?
I don't think it does. Randy, do you know in there? I think in our statute it doesn't.
Well, RH.
Oh, I don't know. I'm thinking of a different. What's that?
Could be outside of the actual board, because it's just a advisory type information.
Right. That's what I was thinking, but I don't know.
Dissolve after you do the policies and procedures for grant application.
Right. But the question is, does it need to do the members of this ad hoc committee? Do they need to be members of the commission?
I should.
They probably do. Okay. Yeah.
The question is one is trying to figure out what you guys want to include in your policy.
So is it fair to say that we're looking for 5 people from a variety of counties, different departments, and we try to get some people who want to be on it, like participate in it? We've got a couple folks that we've already identified that would serve.
I would think that each county should be represented, so it's
Yeah.
7, 6, and then here. In my opinion,
Well, or,
6 counties representing the basin.
yes,
Representative
there you go.
county,
Plus the chair. Okay,
the tiebreaker.
there you go. Yeah, it does. Good job, Adam. I like it. Whatever that's worth, whatever that's worth.
I don't want to be able to do it.
Yeah, I bet you don't.
Is there any other volunteers from the club?
I will say one consideration on that, and probably are going to be at these meetings.
That's true. No wonder she thought a committee was necessary. Right.
Okay, I had a list.
Okay.
Observer. I have 3 members right now, and we need at least 4 forward, and then you can let me know if you'd like to serve. No volunteers? Moving on to the water monitoring program.
Oh, this is cute. Yeah, already.
All right, good morning, everyone. To switch gears a little bit, I'm going to just be providing some water monitoring updates from our water monitoring program and what we've been up to.
Because we have new members. I don't know that I really said what you do. Or,
yes. So my name is Kate Barrett. I am part-time with the St. Joe River Basin Commission, serving as the aquatic ecologist. I'm also a professor of biology at Holy Cross College and adjuncting at Notre Dame. So fun stuff. So we're going to be talking about what we've been up to in terms of our water monitoring program. Through the River Basin Commission, we have 12 monitoring sites scattered throughout the Indiana and Michigan sides of the basin. All those points on the map up there represent each of our 12 sites. And we are conducting biological monitoring, looking specifically at macroinvertebrates, little bugs and critters that reside in the streams that provide an index of how healthy that water is. And you'll notice those points on this map are kind of skewed towards the upper part of the basin, and that's because a lot of our partners, such as DARA, have good coverage elsewhere throughout the basin. And we've been doing this study for going on 3 years. This will be our third summer of this program. We had a successful season in 2022, and we are still waiting to get our results back from Midwest Biodiversity Institute in Ohio. We ship the samples, or they come and pick up the samples from us, and they process everything, and then we can tell you about it hopefully at the next meeting. Oh, and this is just a reminder that last year we wrote a report summarizing long-term trends in water quality for Elkhart County. The Stormwater Partnership there has been conducting surface water monitoring for several years, over a decade. And so that report can be found on our website, and I believe it's probably floating around some other places too. There was a couple of press releases that came out near the end of last year on it. And just some more recent water related projects that I've been dabbling in when it's not summer and doing a lot of field work. I'm deep in the data aspect of things and trying to help out some of our partner counties. Most recently, helping out Steuben County with putting together a strategic water quality monitoring program. So we've been working towards developing a program and what that could look like to garner meaningful data to hopefully enact corrective action in some of the problem areas of like the Pigeon Creek and Fawn River watersheds. Also helping out LaGrange County for a similar motivation to develop a strategic water monitoring program. So I've been working a lot with Martin Franke, who's not here today, but just trying to figure out what data should we collect, where should we sample, and then what will we do with it? Kind of what talking about a little bit earlier. It's great to collect data, but then what do you do with the data? And part of that relates to, I have an ongoing project as well to trying to make sense of existing biological and chemical water chemistry data sets and trying to tell a story about how's the water throughout the St. Joe River Basin. And with that, we've been working on, here's just a little tidbit about that's what I've been doing for Steuben County. I've had some access to existing long-term data from that's collected through their Lakes Council, and trying to put the pieces together, trying to figure out where are some gaps in the data and what should we be monitoring, how often, and where. And like I said, gearing up to assist LaGrange County in a similar endeavor. And related to this, like, how's the water? This is a graph I've been trying to tinker with. How do we analyze how the fish communities are doing, and how does that square up with E. coli? How does that square up with dissolved oxygen? All these other parameters. So this is just a graph of just me trying to figure out, just graphing things and figuring out, are there any patterns? Trying to figure out this ongoing effort to compile and analyze multiple attributes of water quality throughout the basin. And so I've been mentioning Steuben and LaGrange County and the recent report that came out from Elkhart County, but I'd also be interested in assisting if my services are needed or interested in for Kosciuszko and Noble County and St. Joe County as well, because I really want to put together a picture of water quality basin-wide. And I think it'd be awesome to see similar programs in each of these counties, to see collaboration and coordination of sampling efforts, which I know is a big pie in the sky hope, but I think we could get there. It would be great. And we're trying to take all this data so it doesn't just go stale in a filing cabinet somewhere, and put it on this interactive web map that we are working on developing with a GIS consultant. This is still being worked on, but you can access our interactive web map at this URL here. And what we've done is we've just hosted a bunch of, there's like 500 points on this map. Each point might have up to hundreds of records of data that's associated with it. So it's a way to look at long-term trends in certain water quality features and potentially comparing water quality across different sites and over time. And I think that might be it for me. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Kate? I'll just note that, again, new members here, we brought on Kate a couple of years ago, primarily to initiate a biological monitoring program where we didn't have data in the watershed. But she's brought on a lot more than that. What she was talking about there with Steuben County and with Elkhart County is, beyond going and collecting the data themselves, there's been a lot of data collecting. And so working with these partners, and I've heard back from our members that they're getting a lot of support from her. So that's been an unexpected bonus, the ability to sort of analyze existing data. And then I feel like our presence out there in the public has been a lot greater since Kate's come on, whether it's participation in events or, doing watershed talks. She's an educator by trade or by training and in her heart. So, she's out there a lot, and that's been a big add-on that was unexpected. So thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
I have a couple things under water monitoring program myself. I mentioned at the front end on the agenda that I am forecasting that we're going to come up a little short on our water monitoring, and that's just with what we've committed to already. I think the deficit I showed is like $1,300. But what I would like to do, so I included this proposal in your packet. We have 4 more of these water level monitoring devices that give us real-time data about water level. And I'd like to get those out and deployed. But in order to make them useful, we need to do these measurements that we're doing in Phillips Ditch where we deploy these monitors. And so I had a proposal drawn up by Tritium to get these out at 4 places we know that we need them. 3 of them are in LaGrange and Noble counties on the north branch of the Elkhart River. These are the locations that were recommended in the study that we did as additional monitoring needed. I got the little map up there from the plan, from the flood hazard study. And then the 4th one is on Fawn River, where we don't have any information. And Steuben County recently did a big groundwater study. Actually, I guess it was the city of Angola, technically. But we've got a USGS gauge on Pigeon Creek. And so we had a lot of great information about water availability on Pigeon. But the part of the county that drains the Fawn, there was nothing. And there's no USGS gauge on the Fawn. And so We were looking at a site, we were requested by City of Angola for something near, I think the locals say Nevada Mills. I always said Nevada Mills, but I think it's Nevada Mills. Anyway, it's where the outlet of all of the big lakes in Steuben that start the headwaters of the Fawn, where they empty out. And it's a good site to collect data, you know, not too far from the, I guess you'd get close to the county line there. It goes into LaGrange County before it kicks up into Michigan, I think. Anyway, so we've got 4 locations that we know we need this information. We've got the devices to do it. What I'd like to do is hire out the installation of those devices and the measurements that will be taken. So it'll be 5 field visits to go and take these flows with that Tritium company. There's a site, the proposals included in your packet, and the budget amendment that I'm requesting is to increase our water monitoring line item for $29,700 up to $56,000. This would cover the expected shortfall as well as the additional monitoring. And if that goes through, I would be requesting another motion requesting approval to proceed with the proposal from Tritium, the one that's included in your packet, and pay any associated invoices up to $24,030 for work completed. And just a note that, you know, although this amendment, depending on how we handle it, will result in an unbalanced budget, it's important to note, I don't expect that to happen. We're not going to come up under because of a couple of things. One, the uncommitted money that's in that special projects line item we just got done talking about, as well as the additional interest that we've got, will still come out in the black this year, I'm certain.
Used to reallocate one like that.
Well, we could do that. It's a lot messier. I'm actually proposing, what I would propose is we just amend that line item and the budget's unbalanced. It shows a loss, but I don't expect that we will have it. We can do that because from nothing else, just from a fiscal responsibility standpoint, because we have $350,000 in our reserves, we can pass an unbalanced budget expecting to use the money. And actually, we've probably got more than $24,000 that's in unspent water monitoring money from the last 4 years that, you know, could be used for this. And this allows us to get those monitors out there and start collecting data. So that's what I was thinking of on this. I'm happy to take questions or folks have thoughts on this. Otherwise, my request, Chair, would be for a budget amendment to increase the water monitoring line item from 29.7 to 56 to cover the expected shortfall and additional monitoring. That was John.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. And with that passed, I'm requesting approval to proceed with the proposal included in your packet from Tritium to pay the associated invoices up to $24,030.
We have a second. Okay, we have first and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
All right. Thanks a lot. What's that? All right, so we're getting there, folks. Almost new business. Just an update here, especially again, new members. The River Basin Symposium's been a big event, probably the premier event that this group's been doing for 23 years. It'll be the 23rd year for it. We went virtual because of COVID, and we hadn't gone back, but this year we are going back to in person. We will be in the city of South Bend at the Pinhook Park Community Center for the first time. Probably have to cap participation around 100. We will require registration. You all will get a notice first before anybody else. But we will be trying to bring your fellow water folks from the Michigan side of the line that do what you do into this meeting. The whole goal of the meeting from the beginning was to bring the Michigan-Indiana side together. We're hoping to do that. And this year, it's going to be on May 12th. I didn't mention that, it's on the slide. And I will be sending you more information about registration and stuff. Two things, though. One is that this year, we talked about this at our last meeting. We're kind of doing it on the same day at the same spot as the Friends of the St. Joe River, which is a nonprofit, as their watershed celebration. So you will be invited to stick around after the afternoon symposium event that'll take place probably from 1 to 4, 1 to 4:30, something like that. Stick around, have dinner. We got a keynote speaker. We're going to have beer and wine available. Little celebration. We got, some kind of fun stuff. We present an award for stewardship and that kind of thing. So hoping to get some crossover at both events from the two groups. As for our part, the symposium, want to try to start, I don't know whether it becomes an annual or anything, but the Michiana Drainage Symposium. And so this is at least going to be part of it because I've been talking to some speakers and I think this is really relevant. There's a lot of talk, we get into it in new business, about drainage and from a flood mitigation standpoint, and then sometimes, whether it's water quality or, the word I think is often associated amongst water people as something negative. That the drainage of wetlands in particular has led to water quality problems and habitat destruction and stuff. But all of us know work in this world, and without drainage, we don't have roads where we have them. Some of us can't live where we're living. And so there's this balancing act that's constantly taking place between flood mitigation and natural resources protection. And we're going to come at this from the drainage side, but in a way of better drainage. And what can we do that's working well? We've got some speakers, some of these folks you may be familiar with. Jen Tank from Notre Dame has done a lot of work in Kosciuszko County on 2-stage ditches. Elkhart County has some of these as well as Steuben. But basically, you're trying to reconnect floodplain within the drainage network. Kind of accomplishes both benefits, get you some more storage, but also not as much sediment downstream, hopefully lower maintenance costs. Going to have a couple drainage officials, elected officials, talk to Randy Sexton from Noble County, talk about stormwater regulations, how the county's implementing some of that. Joe Parman is a drain commissioner on the Michigan side of the line, talk about determining benefit, how we divide up the bills for drainage. Bob Barr, who's speaking at Steuben County's annual meeting coming up soon, hydrologist, done a lot of work with us, talking about designing for resilience in our systems. And last but not least, someone coming from the farmer side to talk about tile drainage, but in particular controlled tile drainage, how we can kind of use our tile systems to hold back water sometimes and let it go other times. And in some amazing, grandiose world, I'm looking at Kieran from the city of South Bend, who does some fancy stuff with the timing of their sewers to prevent overflows into the river by making sure all the sewers are filled up. And, could this be done out on our agricultural landscape in some way that we kind of choose to hold water back in some fields so that we can buy space for other fields to be able to drain? And, anyway, those are some of the ideas. I want to thank Dara Deegan, who's here from the city of Elkhart, also serves on the Friends of the St. Joe River Board, and Annie Clayfoth, who's not here today, but from Elkhart Environmental Center, who've been helpful in kind of planning the event. We'll have snacks and refreshments in the afternoon. Don't expect any kind of registration fee or anything like that for the afternoon portion. But if you want to stick around for dinner and stuff, there would be a cost associated with that. Any questions about the
Ours in the morning and then.
Afternoon.
Ours in the
Afternoon, and then the eve, what's that, 1 to 4-ish? Symposium.
Is 1 to 4.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Shifted it to kind of try and tie it together with the dinner. Any questions?
Is there still going to be lunch there?
There will not. We can't get into the space until 1 o'clock. So it'll be a little after. We're going to have snacks and refreshments. There won't be a lunch served. Good question. I know. We're looking for recommendations. I know. We talked about this in our meeting. We want to get something cool, something local bakery or something. I don't know.
Okay, if there's no comments, we'll move on to new business. Legislative updates.
Okay, Lisa told me that we're going to try and be quick today, so I'm going to try and not talk too much about these. This is where a lot of my energy's been focused over the last couple of months, legislative session here in Indiana. First one is kind of, I think, carryover from the last session, but Drainage Task Force, we've got several senators and representatives from our basin that serve on the Drainage Task Force. They've been looking at all kinds of different issues. And I guess, you know, one thing I was talking to Randy a little bit about that, there's a lot being talked about our local floodplain regulation at this meeting, and there's some legislation, it's the next one, 242 on there, that's kind of resulting from some of those talks at the Drainage Task Force. And there's some clarification, I think, that could help, and I feel like we have some responsibility. I've been reaching out to these legislators who we work with on stuff and trying to not just like help them understand the impact of the legislation sometimes, but also some of how we got here and providing some context. And with the case of this floodplains and drainage task force, the first two items on the screen, I think the main thing to note is that the data that right now is being used by locals by necessity, has to be used according to state law right now. The DNR's best available floodplain data layer. For one, there's some errors in it and there's been inaccuracies, and we need to come up with a better process for correcting it. I'll give it that. But I think the biggest problem was, and this has come up in LaGrange County, I know for a long time, landowners were not notified about the change in the way that would have really helped this make sense. And basically what I'm talking about here is you might own a piece of land that just had half of it brought into the floodplain, which means it's regulated in a different way. You can't do the same things on your land that you would have been able to do before. And no one wants that information. And so I think without notifying folks, we'll just kind of pass it up, and there's a lot of pushback now because we realize that in protecting people, we've devalued a lot of land. And I think the state's got some concerns about being the ones responsible for taking value away from a property that otherwise would have had it. And so there's some action on this, and I fully expect that rule is going to change for now. But I think that we could come back and maybe do this better. And what I've also heard from some of the folks that we work with is that the local floodplain administrators sort of will have a responsibility, you know, whether it's professional certificate or whatever that they have as a certified floodplain manager, to use this data anyway. So although this law will likely repeal the requirement that they use it, hopefully, and I will be encouraging as much as we can our local communities to still use this data for our regulation. It's just, we should have done a better job notifying people for one, and we need a process for correcting it where it's wrong. That's the update on those. And then the last one is House Bill 1639. This one we talked about in the past. It's come up a few times now, and it's had some changes made to it. A lot of it as a result of the feedback that we gave. This is Representative Aylesworth, who comes from the west side of the state, just outside the Kankakee River Basin. And this legislation is directly about groups like ours, agencies like ours. There's about 5 river basin commissions in the state of Indiana. This proposal, this legislation would provide us with an option for transforming ourselves into a watershed development commission, which is what happened to the Kankakee River Basin Commission. Although over there it was not a voluntary election, the state passed a law saying they will transform from a River Basin Commission to a Watershed Development Commission. This one simply allows us to do so, and in order to do it, it would require each of the counties to pass an ordinance saying they wanted to do this and what the purposes of it were that was identical, and then the Natural Resources Commission would potentially grant that transformation. The big thing about this, I've worked with Brandy on this as far as, hey, what does this mean for us? If we were to transform, is there anything we can do now that we wouldn't be able to do then? Or if we transform, is there something we can do that we can't do right now? And basically, for the purposes of this meeting, we could do everything we could do now. What we would be able to do then that we cannot do now is have a funding source, a local funding source that that comes from landowners. Basically, it's not unlike the drain assessment that takes place in most counties. Looking at Elkhart, because you guys got a different drainage financing mechanism, but every other county where there's an assessment levied, a special assessment levied against each landowner, and it depends on what that type is. If it's an agricultural parcel, it's by the acre. If it's a residential parcel, it's per parcel. And then there's commercial things in there. This is what was used in the Kankakee. The bill simply sets a maximum amount that can be charged. It's like $7 per residential parcel. I think it's about $3 an acre for ag land. Something like that. Don't quote me on that. But the board of that Watershed Development Commission would decide, and they'd have to put out a work plan every year, and you'd have to hold meetings to say why you're going to collect this money, and then it would be the county. The counties would be responsible for collecting the money. Of course, they choose to be in the thing, but then they would be responsible for collecting it. And this, I guess there is one other new power besides funding, and that is we could do works projects, but only in the main channel of the river. So if we wanted to do bank stabilization projects or install possibly even some kind of stormwater filtration unit or something, if it was within the 75-foot easement of the main channel of the river, this legislation through the transformation would grant us that authority to actually start taking on projects like that in the main channel. So that's my update on the legislation. You know, I mean, again, it's voluntary, so it's not like it's something we would have to do, but it, you know, the legislator says his intention on why he's doing this is because he's seen it do great things over in the Kankakee. They've got this plan that they're implementing. John, we have counties that do both. So St. Joe County drains, some of it drains the Kankakee, some of it drains to the St. Joe. So John's on that board, and they're implementing a sediment control work plan right now that seems to be doing some good stuff. And so he wants to see other parts of the state be able to do that same kind of thing. You know, yeah, please.
If you do go to the commission, will it change, they'll change the complete makeup of the board?
It absolutely does. However, we were able to get some amendments. So John's got a good point. Right now, we got a big board here. You know, 5 members from each county, and what this would do in its original form, it took it literally down to just one appointed individual from each county. But we were able to get an amendment passed so that we can still maintain our municipal representation. So from each county, it would be, you know, appointed by the county executive and then someone appointed by the municipal executive of each Class 2 city. It's kind of like it is now, where St. Joe County, because of Mishawaka and South Bend, St. Joe, both of those cities would be able to appoint someone. But for all of our other counties, it would be like City of Angola or the town of LaGrange, City of Syracuse, the town of Syracuse, you know, would all be able to appoint someone. So it'd be different. We would look, but that's the other thing. Because we pushed back, like, hey, we need, you know, this group really is helpful having surveyors and soil and water and all that's the health department on here, because another thing you can use this money for is for septic related work. You know, this is definitely both flooding and drainage and sewage and water quality. We could do a lot with this stuff. Anyway, we pushed back on them. So they in the legislation, it says if we were to transform the St. Joe River Basin Commission in particular, this body would become the advisory body to the appointed one. So, you know, we would.
The county appoints, if the county appoints the surveyor, they can put somebody else for, if they don't appoint the surveyor, they.
Yeah.
One way or the other.
That's right.
They would appoint one person, except that the one person is the surveyor, and we get to appoint a second.
That's right. Brandon, the only way Brandon and I could read this was they were trying to create an incentive for appointing the surveyor to be that person that represents the county, because if you do that, you get a second appointee. So that's right. We would have more than one individual if that route was taken. So any other questions or comments about this?
So it would be set up like the rest of them, where there's a commission and then
an advisory. Exactly. Yes.
How much support is for this? The House Bill 1630.
So it's got bipartisan support on it. It went through the House pretty unanimously, pretty easily. And so now it's landed over in the Senate, and Senator Glick has picked it up. Who's worked on stuff with us. I just sent her an email yesterday about one issue that we found with it. And hopefully to be able to, you know, build a relationship where if we find other things that can make this, right now, it's going to be a lot of work to try to implement it. I mean, to get 6 counties to pass ordinances saying they're going to put a new tax on their landowners is going to be a challenge. So, you know, anything we can do to help make this more approachable as a voluntary mechanism is going to be helpful. So, yeah.
It wasn't that hard with Kankakee. They just pretty much said
the state did it. They just did it.
There's this new tax.
That's right. And some of our colleagues think that that's where this is going. this will eventually, because of the backlog of water infrastructure projects, that there's going to need to be some kind of mandated funding source for doing this stuff. I mean, you just look at what's going on. Steuben kind of just thinking of you guys because we went through this assessment, and LaGrange is kind of in the same way. But we're so behind on this stuff that we need a funding source. So whether you're raising your individual watersheds or we have some kind of holistic source that covers the whole basin and it's allocated out to the highest priority areas. Either way, they think that what happened to the Kankakee, they expect will happen to some of the rest of us. But at this point, it's just an option.
Do you expect to save your local appropriations? Reduced? For the funding source?
I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, it would be counterintuitive from the standpoint of if we're already behind with the local, but if you're thinking you're going to replace it with even more, but this special assessment would definitely not raise more money than what's currently being raised. Even if you just look at Elkhart County with its stormwater fee and then all the drainage assessments that are occurring in other counties, like it's not going to be more money than all that combined. But
This would go to.
no, it would. Well, a watershed development commission. But you were asking if so I think you were asking if the state mandated this kind of transformation, would we expect that the local funding sources that are already in place now, would those go away? Right? Is that what you were asking? Kind of, yeah. And I would suspect no. I would still think we'd have drain assessments collected for each individual drain, and that this would supplement that.
The way the Kankakee works, the state doesn't give them money anymore.
That's right.
That's
Oh, sorry, Adam.
State appropriation.
Right. Good point. Yeah, yes, it would.
That's not
It absolutely.
guaranteed.
That's right. That's absolutely right. So Adam's talking about $100,000 in our budget right now as a direct appropriation from the state of Indiana. And if this were to happen, I think that appropriation goes away. That's right.
But the local funding sources.
Would be way greater. I mean, yeah. Yes. Sorry. And that's kind of why they did it over in the Kankakee. Unlike us, the Kankakee was down at the State House every year asking for millions of dollars to try to maintain this ditch they created. And finally, the people down in Indianapolis were like, we're tired of paying for your ditch. You pay for it up there. And so they transferred, now it's the people up there that got to pay for it. The state doesn't do it. So, I mean, that's kind of some of the impetus. Let's get into it.
Yeah, Jody would go down every year at $2 million and they give you $600,000.
Right. So I've been failing you guys.
They put on his pony show and everything, just get that.
Yeah.
Okay, moving forward, the strategic plan and implementation.
Okay. I'll just make it short and sweet. I think we hit it this. We have a need, I think, on this commission to get some kind of a comprehensive plan in place, whether it be around how we dole out any kind of grants or funds like that. But basically, when we think about two things, this is in light of, for me, one, it's what happened over in the Kankakee and this bill that I just got done talking about. There's no way that this is going to happen to us or that we're going to get counties to voluntarily create this funding mechanism if we're not real clear about what we would do with this money if we got it. We need a plan like they have in the Kankakee that says, first year, we're doing this much, it's going to cost this, and it sort of really lays it out. I feel like we need something like that in our basin. And the second, why this is, just really loud and bright for me right now is EPA has got a ton of money allocated to it through the Inflation Reduction Act and the the other one. Billions of dollars, and they are like trying to give it out. A lot of it's going to underserved communities, lead line replacement and stuff like that. But there's opportunities for rural and municipal stormwater infrastructure in this. But we have to be ready for it. Like we have to have a plan in place. In fact, Kate and I just went through some stuff with some green infrastructure tree grant that's coming out of this same funding source from Forest Service. But we kind of need the plan in place to be able to get the money to implement it. And so, guys, there's no action required on this. I'm pushing towards thinking about that $350,000 that we've got in our reserves and thinking about creating, and ideally, I'm interested in trying to create the plan in-house with the help of experts rather than just hiring it out. Hire some help from Intera and Burke, folks that have come and worked with this group in the past, use their help for some of the technical aspects of it. But with Kate in-house, I feel like we could have a plan and hopefully at a lower cost that's our own. And that could line us up for these kind of things. So it's something that in the future I may become, whether it's budget time or what, that we talk about how much is it going to cost to put one of these together? Because I mean, we look at what we spent on just the north branch of the Elkhart. It's not cheap, but I think it could really help us if and when funding is available to do stuff.
What's your goal on getting something like this put into place or moved around?
Right. So the first thing is finding out, getting some quotes about what this would cost, and we can start those quotes with if they did everything. But then, can we get just your assistance for some designs or the more technical aspects of it? But that's my first step, is trying to get some proposals from whether it be Intera or Burke or Stantec, I think is helping the Kankakee. But there's other firms out there that do this sort of work, getting some proposals to whether we can even afford it. Because that was the thing. Back we've known we need to do a comprehensive plan for a long time, but we didn't have the funds to do it. And I don't know if 350 is, but we can start looking, I think.
So could we hear potentially an update at the next meeting?
Hope so.
Okay.
Yep.
Other business and updates, commission members? Does anybody have anything they'd like to announce or contribute? Okay. Moving on to the director's report.
Just a few things. I include this for stuff that we are working on that doesn't come up other places in the agenda. A lot of what I've been up to, I mentioned, is legislation stuff, but also keeping us good with the state. Brandy mentioned State Board of Accounts. We've got to do annual reporting, so I've been doing that with this gateway system. I just briefly mentioned that Kate and I were working with Forest Service on a potential tree project. We did last year, 2 years ago, we did a big tree planting with 6 communities. We could potentially get a lot more money for more trees to help take water out of our storm system. And so we're working on that. Also, new board members. We had several new folks come on this year. So just kind of trying to do our little orientation, dealing with proxies, web updates. And then we've had a lot of inquiries from the public, Judah Creek, Garber Lake, some folks from Elkhart County on educational items and stuff. But anyway, just trying to keep up on that kind of stuff. And then still working with LaGrange County on our apportionment assistance with the surveyor's office. So just a few other things that I wanted to mention that have been going on outside the regular agenda.
Great. Items from the floor. This would be any kind of events or news they would like to share with other commission members.
I did request anybody submit them via email or whatever. I didn't get any.
If there is none, I make a request for adjournment.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed?
Next meeting is Thursday, June 1st, 2023, here at the Shrub Facility at 10 a.m.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for coming. Officers, I got some things for you to sign.